the music for the song kind of like came from bands like sort of Faust and Public Image and stuff like that. You know, those kind of, I suppose that, you know, Faust and, you know, they influenced Public Image Limited, and that kind of like quite motoric sort of steady sort of beat, but with kind of like, you know, maelstrom of guitars over top of it. I'll make her half a sheet from a lock of your hair. So I just tried to kind of like make it a kind of an emotional, sort of epic feeling track, really. I wasn't really concerned about the story of the song, or I was more concerned about the kind of like the vague, impressionistic pictures it was painting. And the song's about, I suppose it's about sort of the beauty of weakness. It's a celebration of that, really. That's very kind. Take them all on and force down their souls, and I'll take them all on and walk through their walls, and I'll take them all on and crawl to your door, and crawl to your... You know, none of the songs are kind of, they're all about almost about sort of like collections of feelings and collections of experiences throughout my kind of like life, I suppose, really. You know, I don't really feel the need to write about specific things anymore. You know, I never really have, to be honest. I like sort of taking, I'm a sort of magpie, and I take different pieces of my experience, different sort of like phrases and words that might interest me, and sort of throw them all together. And sometimes attributing too much meaning to music, I think, is a bit of a red herring. Music is very much about feeling and suggestion, and it's very much about letting people join the dots as well. It's very much about that whole thing of it's your interpretation that counts, and it's almost like the singer or the writer's job just to press a few buttons that sort of hint, why don't you try going in this direction? And that's lots of the songs. Yeah, and that's where lots of the songs came from. You know, this kind of desire not to be too obvious. But lots of the songs are very, very emotional. The last album I made, Slow Attack, was quite specifically set in the countryside. It was a very sort of like rural record, and it wasn't a peaceful rural record. It was quite unpleasant, brutal rural record, inspired by people like Ted Hughes and stuff like that. And this record, I wanted to be kind of, not an urban record, but I wanted to be very much about human relationships, about that endless, fascinating battle between people that kind of like, you know, that is encapsulated within love and jealousy and hate and all of those things. You know, the way that people sort of bounce together and mesh and kind of destroy each other and fall in love, and it's endlessly fascinating. And I wanted that to be the landscape of the record. There's sort of 5 or 6 songs that I put up there with the best of my work, which is, I think, you know, proud to say that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with This Must Be Where It Ends. That was one of my favourite ones.
Yeah.
For the record. It's a huge soaring chorus, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And it's great to hear your voice still hitting those highs. Are you still smoking?
It's what auto-tune's for, you know.
Oh, okay.
Basically, you don't have to sing anymore. You just sort of like, you know, stutter it out, and the kind of producer just puts it away. No, it's no, I haven't smoked for years. I haven't smoked for God, nearly 10 years now.
Good work.
But, yeah, I love being a singer, actually. You know, for a while I was kind of interested in stretching myself as a musician, and I got that out of my system. Proud of what I did, the work I did. The second solo album was very much about that wilderness. And then, you know, for me now, it's, you know, I'm very happy you know, and proud that that my job is a singer. You know, I think it's kind of perfectly acceptable to try and do one thing really well, and that's what I'm trying to do well. I actually personally think my voice is actually better than it's ever been. Actually, I think it feels a lot. Obviously, your voice changes as you get older. The range that you find comfortable changes, and it tends to go down. You tend not to be able to reach the high notes as comfortably. But as a whole thing, you know, when I'm singing old songs, I can kind of reach the top notes, but I feel much more in control of the kind of baritone end of the range. And why is that? Probably a lot to do with just experience, but also because I'm just healthier as well. So you know, it's just I'm enjoying my singing at the moment.
And I'll come to you like a ship to the shore, like a paper plane that falls to the floor, and I'll take them all on and crawl to your door and crawl to your door.
Was there a conversation in your mind as to whether some of the songs on the new record would be Suede songs, or whether they would specifically be solo records?
Oh no, they wouldn't, and that wouldn't ever be Suede songs because they weren't played by Suede. I mean, that's the thing. You know, the way in which this record was made, it was, you know, I didn't sort of sit down at a piano and kind of write a load of songs. You know, it was made as a very much. I kind of got a band together and we jammed, made a, you know, recorded a load of jams. So it wasn't the members of Suede playing. And that for me is very important. You know, Suede as an identity is very important. You know, Simon's drumming, Matt's bass playing, Richard's guitar playing. They've got very strong identities as musicians. And even though, you know, people without musical ears wouldn't really be able to identify Matt's bass playing from someone else's bass playing, because bass is quite an anonymous instrument. It's definitely got a character of its own, and that's really important. So no, there was never that confusion for me. About whether they were Suede songs or not, but I didn't have that thing that I'd had on previous solo albums where I was kind of like very consciously trying to keep away from Suede. You know, I didn't. With the last two solo albums, I made an acoustic record with a cello player, and then basically a folk record. And I think looking back on those records, I was probably a little bit too self-conscious about not going too near Suede with what the work I was doing. And with Black Rainbows, I just sort of let go a bit and just thought, well, I want to make a rock record again. Luckily, or by judgment or whatever, it doesn't to me sound like Suede. It sounds like Suede singers singing on top of a different band, which is exactly what it is.
Give me